We're here today with Richard Duncan from F5 Networks. Richard, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome, thanks for having me.
Great. So we're talking about IoT, and with a lot of connected devices, that brings up a lot of issues and a lot of concerns about security. So I guess my first question is, let's talk about some of the threats that are present in IoT. What are some of the main threats that people are seeing?
Well, I think one of the biggest threats tends to be how some of the IoT devices are going to be built. They're going to be very low powered, very cheap. So security is not going to be inherent built into the IoT device. Others, they're just not going to be relevant to the consumer when they buy them, that they have to implement security. And both those things combined is going to impact the consumer as we roll out more and more of these devices. And I see that as a threat in the sense that when they get onto the networks, bad actors, even though they're intended to do good for us, bad actors are going to take advantage of those loopholes or of our inability to figure out exactly how to use that device properly.
That's an interesting thing too, because it's inherent in the design of the devices themselves. It's not something that someone's really thinking about until it's almost too late.
Well, yeah, if you look at it, most of these devices are designed to facilitate and make our lives easier, help us, right? But in facilitating to make our lives easier, it's also making the life of the bad actor much easier to compromise and make use of those devices to harm us.
So where does the responsibility for the security lie? Because it could come from the network side, it could come from the device side. We're sort of in the middle.
I think it's going to have to be a combination of both, but at the end, it's going to end up on the network side. So if you look at it from an airport's a good example of what we're doing today. We're deconstructing the perimeter. We no longer have this, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, right? It's all over the place. And when you go to an airport, you have certain credentials that identify that you're a safe traveler, like TSA pre and stuff like that. But there's also an inherent security built into the actual airport or the infrastructure or the network itself. Right, so if you fail to bring your right credentials, the network takes care of that. So I think at the end of the day, that has to be there 100%. Some devices are going to have more security, some devices are going to have less security. So the network is going to have the ability to move those bad actors into an area where they can be interrogated further to verify what the intention is on that IoT device. Similar again to how we go to the airport, right? You've seen people get pulled out of line and stuff like that. Similar to the network's going to have to be able to do that.
I like that example because it's sort of the varying levels of security. Maybe between the airlines it's a little different. Maybe between some gates are easier to get into than others. But if you apply security network-wide, that takes care of the deficiencies in the device, but it also doesn't necessarily slow anything down if the device is capable. Yeah,
and you've seen they've got TSA pre, they've got clear, we've got vendors who work inside the airport who fast path, we've got the crew who uses the airport, and if you're standing in line waiting to go through, you notice there's a certain level of security that we all go through, but each individual people have different paths that they take. Some of them are faster than others based on their level of initial security that they enter it with. And the same thing has to be applied onto the network side.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, on the service provider side, how are they going to manage this IoT security? How does that happen? Does it happen on a system-wide basis, or is it per device, or how does that work?
Well, I think we had a discussion this morning around automation, and everyone's been speaking about automation as far as service velocity. How fast can I deploy things? But with the level of IoT devices that they're predicting, like 50 billion devices,
a lot, yeah.
One of my colleagues says it, and he says it the best. We humans are slow. We think we're quick, but we're really, really slow at doing analytical. We're going to have to apply that same automation and machine learning into the infrastructure. There's just going to be too much data, and the speeds at which this data is using and how fast the threats are going to come, we're going to have to be able to consolidate, get information very, very quickly, both from real-time telemetry and maybe from a data lake, stuff that we've stored historical over the next, correlate the two and make a decision about, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this something that I should be inspecting further? But that has to be on the automated side. It cannot be something that we apply to like a SOC or whatever and people do it themselves.
And what does with the F5 networks, what does F5 bring to the service provider to make this process easier?
Well, one of the big things we have, and we start right at the edge, which is network slicing, right? Which is, that segmentation in the line. So we have the capability to actually interrogate and look at the various devices and figure out what type of device you are. Based on that type of device, we can now apply a per policy on what we want to do with you based on what type of device and what level of security and what level of trust, I should say. Don't like security so much. I'll use what level of trust do I have, right? And how safe I feel you are. And then we move you through our network appropriately. The other piece that we have is we see a lot of data. If you look at a traditional IoT device, like if you look at your phone today, your phone is an IoT device. My phone has over 300 applications on it. Each application behaves differently. So if you just profile, if you look at F5, what we do, we look at IP and applications. If you just profile the phone and the IP address of your IoT device, you're missing all the various applications which behave differently. So you have to have a really granular understanding of each application, what looks good, what looks bad, and then act upon that and not just a simple IoT device.
Right, act upon the individual characteristics and not just the device as a whole.
Yeah, I saw one on television. If you were watching, it's like, I forgot the name of it, it's like a car show, and they were talking about the new cars coming out, how they have so many different computer devices and so many different sensors. Well, if you think of an autonomous driving car, there are going to be certain sensors that are just giving me telemetry on the car. Great to know. But then there's going to be stuff that's going to be mission critical, which allows this car to drive without getting into an accident. I have to be able, even though the car is the single IoT device, I have to now be able to separate those two applications and apply various policies to them. One's real time, very, very quick. One is a different policy. So there's an example of just where things are going as far as an IoT device and the applications underneath it.
Another excellent example. Richard, thanks so much for the information and for being here today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Take care.